Okay, top mounting of the strut. These are the stock 12mm bolts. I'm thread them on first by hand. And one of the things that you want to do too is make sure you got a jack up underneath the actual hub, so that way you have the pressure up underneath it. These studs tighten down. They only take about 12 foot-pounds of torque, so I usually do them by hand. I usually use either a nut driver to tighten them down, because that's usually way more than enough force to tighten them down. If you use any more, they can snap, so you want to be real careful on tightening these down. Alrighty, so we're going to adjust the rear ride height, and the proper way to do that is to adjust where the shock sits in the mounting cup, and this is the actual mounting cup here. Basically what we want to do is we want to loosen this. One of the nice Powertrix exclusives is we have a top mounting spring seat, and this allows the spring to actually move around and spin, so that way you can, what we're going to do is once we loosen this, we're going to grab the whole assembly and we're going to twist it, and we're going to either twist it clockwise to lower the car or counterclockwise to unscrew the actual shaft out of the actual mounting cup. So we'll go ahead and do that now. We're going to get in here with the spanner wrench. We're going to break loose the mounting, or the bottom lock nut. It shouldn't be too tight. You should be able to break it loose. Once it's loose, now as you can see, this whole shock assembly will turn very easily. So we're going to screw that back down since we've got it loose, so that way we can get a good adjustment. You can use just about anything that you like to try to look at it. Tape measure works really good. And what you want to do is you want to take the distance from the bottom jam nut on the mounting cup to the bottom lock nut of the spring perch. And right now we've got about 5 3/4 inches in between there, so we're going to actually screw this shock body all the way down into this about an inch, so we'll bring it all the way down to about 4 3/4. So we'll go ahead and grab that and loosen it up. And this is one way to check, so that way you know, you can actually get an idea. Right now it's not the actual body isn't screwed in, but you can kind of place the mounting nut in the area where it should be, so that way you'll know roughly where we're at once you're at the right designated ride height that you want. So we're at about 5 inches. We can move the mounting nut a little bit more upward, and now we're almost at 4 3/4. Just a little bit more. Okay, so now all you have to do is grab the whole assembly, and you can actually see the whole assembly, the spring. This is completely loose, so you can actually just twist it by hand. Again, this is doing the ride height adjustment without even touching or messing with trying to remove the coilover system. This makes adjustment a lot easier. Alrighty, and we are right at about 4 3/4. And once you got it at the right height you want, go ahead and lock it down with your spanner wrench. And it doesn't have to be gorilla tightened, just snug. Okay, and we're set. Now, one of the real important things you want to do is you want to make sure when you're twisting this assembly that sometimes you want to double check the nut on the top. The 17mm nut, sometimes it might come unloose. Just hit it with an impact gun, make sure it's tight. If this nut is not tight, basically you have the shaft loose and it'll pogo and cause a knocking noise. So if you have that type of issue, all you got to do is tighten down that nut. But you always want to check after you do your adjustments. You can hit that with a 17mm ratchet, or even an impact gun would be fine. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and lower the front. The front was almost where we wanted it to be. Let's go ahead and measure the distance between the top and the bottom lock nut. Got about 2 inches, so we're just going to come down a little bit. We're going to come down about 3/8 of an inch, make the total distance between the two lock nuts about 1 5/8. So I'm going to reach in, do the same thing we did with the rears. Now loosen the bottom lock jam nut using the wrench. Actually, using the wrench for loosening, it works. We can actually get in there. Retightening it back up is going to be another issue, in which I'll show you just a little bit. Okay, so we're loose, and we're going to try to bring this down to about 1 5/8. So loosen that up, and again we'll grab the whole assembly. We're going to turn it clockwise to go inward. Now, since we're working in such a tight area, we can't get our hand completely all the way around the spring. You can also use the spanner wrench to help you turn the whole assembly. If you grab one of the lock nuts or even the bottom perch here, you can kind of help it spin a little bit. There we go, and as you can see, that whole assembly will twist. Measure again, and we're right where we want to be, 1 5/8. So we'll lock this down. Now you notice trying to tighten this down, basically when you can't really get the spanner wrench in there quite the way you want to, regardless of how you do it, either the lateral control arm gets in the way or the body. So a little trick that we use, as you use something soft, we use a block of wood, and so that way it doesn't tear up the aluminum, and we just kind of put it in where the actual spanner wrench goes, and tap it a little bit and you can see it actually move, and it'll tighten it down just enough to where you need to be. And there we have it. Again, doesn't have to be overly tightened. Last thing you want to do, just like on the back, come up to the top, recheck, make sure the 17mm bolt didn't move or loosen. You hit it with an air gun or impact just to make sure it's tight. And you're done.